Hi, I'm Carter, and this is my 2008 Honda Civic sedan. This is not the SI, this is the 1.8 liter, but it still has a 5-speed manual, so somewhat cool. This is my daily driver, so let's get it ready for winter. We're going to be doing an oil change along with the oil filter, as well as changing up the tires, and also maybe an engine air filter, just for fun. Part Source had a pretty good deal on. I got all this stuff for just under 70 bucks. That's full synthetic oil, along with a cabin air filter and an engine air filter, as well as a brand new oil filter. I took the car around the block once just to warm up the oil a little bit. Makes it easier for when you're draining it. I've divided this video into 3 sections, which there should be chapters for, so if you're looking for just the oil change specifically, then you can just jump straight to that. So before I actually get the car in the air, I'm going to be braking all of the lugs for the wheels so that they can come off easier. And repeat for all 4 corners. One thing to note is that I do sort of a cross pattern where you start, say, at the top, and then move to that one, then to that one, then to that one, and then to that one, just to avoid any uneven pressure. Okay, so now that the car is in the air, fully secured on all the jack points, and I've used my dad's wonderful little goofy lifter here just to make it easy. This is where the video will split. And so, yeah, if you're doing oil change specifically, you can just go straight to that. Or if you're doing tires, you'll see sort of how it all works in. So I'll be editing this so that it'll all be separate. So it should be easy. All right, sweet. So for the oil change, I've got a few things to help us out. We've got the oil drain pan, as well as a little extra protection under there. Some shop towels, the thing to roll under the car, as well as some tools, of which I have the usual tool to get the drain plug off, as well as some extra tools to help out with the oil filter just in case it gets stuck. These aren't necessary or mandatory, but they do certainly help. And so it definitely depends on the oil filter. Like if you have one like a K&N filter that has the socket on the end that makes it easy to take off, then that's great. But in this case, we'll be using these. Additionally, we also have the oil itself and the filter. I'll be going over filling that in a little bit. And then we also have the new gasket. This is to put on the bolt after we take it out. And then a little magnet. This just helps us fish around for the bolt when it's in the oil pan. So let's get to it. I forgot to mention, for safety's sake, I'm also wearing rubber gloves and these goggles. So now that we're under the car, we can see here, right here is the oil drain plug, and right here is the filter. They're labeled here with this red paint just to make it easy. And so that's what's nice about these R18 Honda engines, is you get easy access to these 2 things. Now, on my SI, the oil filter is like way up here, and it's annoying. You have to get your hand around the suspension. It's really annoying, but here it's easy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break this bolt, loosen it, slowly get it out, hence why the gloves, you don't want to get oil all over you, and let it drain into the pan right here. And then after this is draining, we'll do the filter, which won't have that much oil in it. Hopefully you see that all right. Here's my drain plug. So I've got my tool here, set to off, get it on there. And the tough part's always breaking it because that's torqued down. So you gotta really make sure that you're solid on there. And it's also important to note, as I kind of position myself better here, is that once this comes off, the oil's gonna go out pretty far. So I have the pan not directly below the bolt, kind of out, because you need to account for that oil coming off fast. All right, let's get on this thing. There we go. Took a little bit, but we got there. All right, now here comes the fun part. We need to make sure that's lined up. Push it back a little further. Now, I'm not gonna guarantee this is gonna go smoothly. So at the very least, I'll try my best. Maybe we'll do it by hand. That's what we're gonna do. There she comes. So, I'm putting pressure right now on the bolt because I want to loosen it as much as I can without actually getting the oil flying. And also I gotta account for it kind of dripping here, so it's not gonna be perfect, but we're here for the ride regardless. And I'm looking for when it gets loose and oil starts dripping, which it is. Okay, 3, 2, 1. There we are. And what's nice, I even got the drain bolt, so I don't gotta go fishing for it. All right, I hope you can see that okay, because you can see here the oil is just coming out smooth. We're just gonna wait here for it to kind of stabilize so I can move the drain pan so that I can kind of let it sit, because this is gonna be draining for a while just to get all the drops out. So, all right, so it's gonna be about here, and the drain pan looks to be about happy here. So I'm free to just leave this here for now, and then we'll go do some other stuff. We'll go prepare the oil filter, prepare the drain bolt, and then as well as in this case, I'm also gonna be switching the tires out. So, all right, let's roll. So as the oil is slowly dripping into the pan there, here's the drain bolt. And I've already gone ahead and taken off the old gasket here. I should actually probably have this on the towel, shouldn't I? So here's the raw drain bolt. And then this is the new gasket. This just goes on nice and square. These gaskets are really cheap, so you can definitely afford, if you're gonna be doing your own oil and you're buying oil, you can definitely afford to get a new gasket each time. Assuming it actually goes on. Yeah, there we go. Just needed 2 hands. So that's sitting on there nice. So we know that's good. Let's go prepare the oil filter. All right, so I've got the oil filter here with the seal taken off. And what we're gonna be doing is filling this up with oil, just enough that it's all absorbed. And it's maybe up to about 1 centimeter or 2 filled up. And then we're gonna take some fresh oil and put it around the O-ring here. And this O-ring is gonna be key, because as we take the old filter off, we really need to make sure that the old O-ring is taken off as well. So, for the ease of filling, have this in the box because I'm going to seal it up just as I go do the old filter as well as the tires, so we don't want any dust or anything getting in there. And then we've got our new oil. This is our full synthetic 5W20 as per the Civic specs. It's going to be a little bit challenging with one hand, but I believe in myself. We're going to do this real careful. Let's make sure that's good. Slowly filling up. And it'll come to the top and slowly sort of fill in the gaps in the filter. So it'll be a few mini fills, I guess. All right, so for the oil change, you can kind of see there, right, that silver socket is where the oil filter comes off. And I already took it off. I totally forgot to record it. The gist of it is the strap goes around the oil filter. You press it up against there with those teeth and just basically not force it, but you just have a whole lot of grip on that. And so it comes off like that. So all that's got to happen right now is put the drain bolt back on, put the new filter on, and then drop the car and fill it up with oil. All right, so for the oil drain plug, I'm basically going to tighten it by hand first, and then I've got my torque wrench here. This is torqued to 29 foot-pounds, which is what the Civic calls for. Your car will vary. So basically, even though, there's still oil dripping here, clean this off, make sure, obviously, there's no gasket around there. Of course, we confirmed that by looking at it, but always got to make sure. Clean off the surface area, and then make sure our new fresh gasket's on our drain bolt. And it looks good to me. So basically, I'll put that on there nice and solid. Start twisting her on. I'm always worried about doing this over the oil drain pan as if it's gonna fall in. All right, so that's hand tightened, but obviously that's not good enough. So we got our torque wrench here, good to go, 29 foot-pounds. Oops, this is the wrong way. I totally had that on the wrong way. It's funny. Boom. Just make sure that's good. Boom. So this drain plug is good to go. Now let's do the oil filter. So here we're just wiping down all the old oil, making sure it's all clean here. It loves to come over here. So that's all dry. We'll get the new filter. I'm gonna be using my left hand for this, so this is gonna be a little bit awkward. And it's important to remember that we got the filter full of oil. So it's like, oh, you gotta account for that. Make sure it's seated. Okay, just real casually. It's gonna look awkward as hell. But what counts is that it's properly seated. I'm really worried about this extra oil that's surrounding the filter, actually. But it's okay. All right, and now that's hanging. Just to tightness. Cool. So yeah, just hand tighten. And of course, clean up the extra oil here. Because it's hand tight now, like I can't do it anymore. Now we'll use the tool. And I'm gonna just use the leak tested as an indicator line. So I want to do 3 more quarters turns. So I want this L to be upside down about here, roughly. It's not an exact science, of course, but that's the whole fun of it, eh? There we go. Yeah, this tool in particular is only slightly annoying. It's always a fun time remembering how to actually get it to properly turn the filter. Just about there. Yep. So here I've got a funnel set up into the engine oil fill hole, of which you can see here we need 5W20. And we still have our engine oil over here. So, all right, let's check it out. All right, so the manual calls for 3.7 liters with the filter full, and this is a 5-liter amount. And the age-old trick when pouring oil is not to pour sort of like that, because then you get glugging. Instead, you kind of pour sideways. So, making sure that this funnel's solid and it's clean, of course. Let's start putting oil in. Let's start the car. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm not gonna instantly start it, I'm gonna crank it a little bit just to get oil flowing. All right, so for swapping the tires, we're gonna need our little zipper here. Well, that's what I call it at least, to get the lug nuts off. And we've already broken the lug nuts with the breaker bar, so we don't need to worry about that right now. We have our torque wrench, of which we're gonna be torquing it down to 80 pound-feet, which is to Civic spec. Might differ depending on your car. And then we also have some anti-seize. I'll just be putting that on the surface point. And then my winter lug nuts. What's special about these is, since these are aftermarket wheels, there's going to be this like blue ring around it as an adapter. I just got to remove that ring and then put the new, well, not new, but newish to me, winter tires on, of which they are Honda OEM wheels. And so they won't need the adapter. So let's get to it. So we're going to be following the same sort of pattern with the star, where we go boom, 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 just so that the pressure's even. So let's get to it. Last one's always a little bit finicky. I'm just going to throw these guys here, off to the side. And it's always important to make sure that all your stuff's in a safe spot. You don't want to be going back and forth between everything. Like I just had to be looking for this, and it took me like 10 minutes to look for this. So make sure you're prepared. All right, and then it'll just come straight off. Put this off here. Cool. Let's repeat for all 4 wheels. So all of the summer tires are off. And here's the sort of exposed section. And you can see, here's that adapter. So I need to get this off now. It'd be really nice, of course, if this just came off nice and smooth. But I gotta use a little screwdriver thing to get this off, so we'll do that. All right, so to be a little extra, you know, theoretically we could literally just throw the winter tires straight on this. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a wire brush, scrape whatever rust there is off, as well as use some anti-rust stuff and just spray all the connection points. Of course, not the actual brake pad. And then also we'll use the anti-seize directly on this mating surface here, as well as on the edges of the sockets here. So now that the surface is all prepared, we'll just throw the winter tires on and then just casually tighten the lug nuts. We're not going to torque them down until the car has made contact with the ground. I'm gonna just tighten these lug nuts by hand for the most part, just so that it's nice and even, and then we'll use the power tool to properly get them in, without, of course, torquing them down yet. Same exact start pattern as usual. Everybody kind of has their own method for doing tires, so as long as they're properly done, there's a lot of ways to go about it. That's what I find, at least. Cool. So now that there is contact on the ground here, we're just going to torque each of the lug nuts to their respective torque spec. In this case, it's 80 pound-feet. So again, same sort of there. And also I noticed that this is pretty low on pressure, so we'll also fill up the tire pressure. Repeat for all 4 tires. So as for tire pressure, I use this tool here, and the spec is 32 psi, which we're hitting exactly here. So that's what we're going for all these tires. So now that the oil change is done, oil filter, tires, as well as tire pressure is done, we're going to quickly do the engine air filter. This is fairly easy. Just pop these 4 tabs. Luckily for me, these aren't rusted out like crazy. And I think we're missing a tab there, so I think we're good. And the housing lifts up like that. So once all the clips are out, this just comes out, pops right out, lifts up, and then here's the old filter. We'll take this out of this extra housing, wipe it down, clean it up, and put the new one in. A little bit hard to see with the light, but this is the new filter, and this is the old one. The old one hasn't been changed since I got the car new, so I've definitely been meaning to do this. So at the very least, it'll be good to get rid of this old one and have a new fresh one in. All right, so after a very brief wipe down, this is good to go back on, as I said, there's a little bit of dust from the edge that touched the filter. But regardless, after a little casual wipe down, new filter's in, so it's good to get closed up. So these 3 clips in my case, there's supposed to be another 4th one right there, but these just clip back into place. There it is. So after running it for a little bit, nothing sounds too horrible. Not going to explode, of course. We're going to reset the maintenance minder on our dashboard here. So, all we got to do for this, if it'll focus on the damn thing, we just switch over to our oil life, hold down the select/reset button for about 10 seconds. It's good that there's also no dash lights on. It'll start flashing. There we go. And then all we do to reset the oil life percent is hold the same thing for another 10 seconds. There we go. Oil life 100%. And with that, I'll also be recording in my service book about the oil change, as well as the tire swap and the engine air filter change. So, I'll show you how that works. In my service record book here, we have our current mileage, 305,342 kilometers. Today's date, October 17th, 2024, and the description of what we got. We did an oil and filter change, the tire swap with the rotation. I didn't mention the rotation in the actual video, but essentially all I did is, since they're directional tires for the winters, the front tires are on the rears right now, because last year when we put them on, we marked them as driver front, driver rear, passenger front, passenger rear, and had them as such. But since it's a new season, we did a tire rotation, so just front to back in this case, and then next year it'll be back to front. So I have that down for future reference. As well as here we have our engine air filter change, and these little dots are just to say same mileage, same date, so at least I know that I need to swap this about a year from now, which is what I plan on doing. And if we take a look at my other service history here, one thing I'd like to know is the cabin air filter, which I believe I did in January of this year. So let's see. Cabin air filter was last done in September of 2023, but I figure I'm just going to do it at the start of the year instead. Otherwise, the service book is good to go back in the glove box, hanging out there. Sweet. Otherwise, I think that's it for this sort of winter preparation. We did the oil change, oil filter, tires, tire rotation, engine air filter, and I plan on doing the cabin air filter in January. Otherwise, everything else seems to be okay. There's no dash lights. Everything else is good here. So I can't think of anything else that majorly needs to be done. Maybe I'll have to look through the service book again to see maybe if brake fluid or things like that needs to be flushed. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with how things are. So thank you very much for watching. This is the first time I've actually done a sort of full service, I guess, on my own. Usually I've had my dad at least helping me somewhat. So this was totally on my own. I really appreciate you guys sticking around. And I do plan on making videos for each time I have to do things to cars. So at the very least, it should be an interesting sort of thing. Sweet.